My name's Noah. I'm 24, an electrician apprentice, and according to my mother, living proof that some wires are just crossed wrong. I grew up in a house where the electricity wasn't the only thing that needed rewiring. The walls were clean, the floors were spotless, but emotionally, we were one faulty outlet away from burning it all down. My room was the basement, not because there wasn't space upstairs, but because that was where you belong until you figure your life out. The upstairs was all white walls, dusty candles that no one was allowed to light, and framed Pinterest quotes like, "Family is the anchor that holds us through life's storms." Funny how mine felt more like a sandbag. Every time I'd bring up work, I got the same response. "You're crawling through attics like a raccoon, Noah. Is that what you want to do forever? You could have been something. Something. Like my sister, Natalie. Natalie, the orthodontist in progress. Natalie, the pearl of the Parker name. She got the bedroom with the bay window, the brand new car at 17, the 'We're so proud of you' speeches every week at dinner. I got to fix the light when it flickered in the pantry. While she posted filtered selfies from Aspen, I was unclogging breaker panels and crawl spaces for $16 an hour, covered in insulation dust and sweat. And I loved it. I was good at it. Not that anyone cared. When I got my first certification, I stuck it on the fridge. By the next morning, it was gone. Replaced with one of Natalie's third-place bowling trophies. "Yours didn't match the decor," Mom said without even looking up from her coffee. Sometimes I wondered if I was adopted. Other times I figured I was just a tax write-off that overstayed his usefulness. But I stayed. I stayed even when Dad made jokes about me installing lights because I couldn't ever shine on my own. I stayed even when Mom reminded me that Natalie never made us worry. I paid rent. I paid for my tools. I even helped with groceries. Quietly. Never asked for anything. Because deep down, I thought if I stayed long enough, they'd see me. Not the basement. Not the toolbox. Me. Then one night, after a typical dinner of silent chewing and mild parental disappointment, I mentioned that I'd been offered a gig, wiring a new apartment complex across town. Big job. Full-time. Good pay. Mom didn't congratulate me. She slammed her mug down and said, "So that's it? This is your dream? Running around with wires like some handyman? You're a disgrace." She looked at me like I'd just spit on the floor. "Get out. If that's who you want to be, do it somewhere else." At first, I thought she was joking. But her tone wasn't. Her eyes weren't. Dad didn't say a word. Just kept scrolling on his iPad. Natalie wasn't even there. She was at some beach rental in Florida, paid for with the money they said they didn't have, when I needed new tools. So I stood up. Walked downstairs. Grabbed my duffel bag, threw in 2 changes of clothes, my work boots, and my certification, the one that didn't match the decor. And I left. Quietly. Just like they always said I should. They didn't even come to the door. I still remember the hallway light flickering above me as I walked out, one I'd offered to fix weeks ago. I looked up at it one last time, and for some reason, that stupid flickering bulb felt like it understood me more than they ever had. Outside, the air hit cold. My boots scuffed the pavement. No dramatic goodbye. No yelling. Just the sound of the screen door creaking shut behind me. Funny thing is, I didn't even slam it. I just let it close on its own. The first night I left, I crashed at my buddy Jared's place. 1-bedroom apartment that smelled like Jim's socks, microwaved burritos, and just a hint of broken ambition. The couch sagged like it had seen things. Probably had. I didn't ask. "You sure you're good down here?" Jared asked, holding a paper plate full of cold pizza. I nodded. Better than home. He didn't push. That's what made him a good friend. Just tossed me a blanket, turned off the lights, and let me marinate in my own thoughts. And let me tell you, no one prepares you for the emotional weight of sleeping under a window that looks out on a gas station dumpster. That first night, I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, listening to muffled traffic and the soft purring of Jared's judgmental cat, and all I could think was, Did they even notice I was gone? Mom probably replaced the silence with a new candle. Dad was probably watching cable news, complaining about how kids these days don't stick with things. And Natalie? She probably posted a beach photo with some quote like, "Focus on what makes you glow." I didn't cry. I just felt heavy. Like the kind of heavy no amount of lifting ever fixes. The next few days were work and survival. I ran side jobs like my life depended on it, because, honestly, it kind of did. Rewiring outlets in old townhomes. Fixing bathroom exhaust fans. Emergency breaker flips at 3 a.m. I slept when I could. Ate what I found. Folded my clothes in a milk crate. Used a shower curtain for privacy on the couch. Jared was cool. He didn't say much, but I saw him leaving snacks near my stuff. Didn't mention the socks I'd washed in his sink. Just kept the Xbox volume low, and handed me gas money once without a word. One morning, while I was loading wire spools into the back of a borrowed van, my boss Carl asked, "You trying to impress someone, Parker? Or you just hate sleep?" I shrugged. "Sleep's for people who live somewhere." Carl chuckled, but he watched me a little longer than usual that day. Like he knew something was up. The truth? I didn't have a plan. I had $271 to my name, 3 unpaid bills, and a truck that made a choking sound every time I turned left. I was tired. But I wasn't going back. Not after how fast they let me go. "You're a disgrace." That sentence still buzzed in my head like a loose wire. Especially when I thought about my dad. The last real conversation we had was over dinner. I told him I wanted to go into electrical work full-time. He laughed. Not cruelly, just dismissively. "Wires? Really? What, you're scared of real responsibility?" Then he went back to his casserole like he hadn't just short-circuited my self-esteem. So when my phone buzzed a week later and I saw Carl's name, my stomach did a full loop. "You still looking for extra work?" "Always," I replied. "Willow Ridge Apartments. New construction. They need a temp tech. Could be full-time. It's yours if you want it." I froze. The Willow Ridge project wasn't just a job, it was the kind of contract electricians dream about. I'd driven past the site before, looked at the scaffolding and wondered what kind of crew got tapped for something like that. "I'm in." I texted back before I could even think about it. Carl replied with an address, a time, and a short, "Don't be late." I stood in Jared's kitchen, staring at the screen, phone in one hand, gas station burrito in the other. Jared walked in and blinked at me. "You okay?" "I think I just leveled up." That night, I'd borrowed $12 from Jared's laundry fund, left a note on top that said, "Buying gas and dignity. We'll repay with both." At 6 a.m. sharp, I was behind the wheel. My truck groaned like it was being punished, but it moved. As I pulled onto the highway, I passed a massive sign outside the site. "Willow Ridge, built for the future." I didn't know it yet, but that job? It was going to rewire my whole life. Willow Ridge was massive. 10 buildings, 3 floors each, all skeletal steel, yellow caution tape, and fresh concrete when I showed up. The kind of job site that smelled like sawdust, burnt coffee, and grown men pretending not to cry when their knees popped. Carl waved me in like I was late for church. "Parker! You still remember how to hold a screwdriver, or do I need to send you back to rewiring Grandma's porch lights?" "I've evolved," I said. "Now I also wire rich people's wine fridges." He smirked and tossed me a hard hat. "Dave's crew. Apartment 304A. Go make magic." Dave was gruff, gray-bearded, and built like a human drywall anchor. I thought he hated me at first, until I coiled up a 75-foot run of Romex cable before lunch and he said, "Not bad." Which, from Dave, was basically a standing ovation. We worked 10-hour days, 6 days a week. I rarely checked my phone. No texts, no missed calls, not even a sarcastic meme from Natalie. Just silence, the kind that no longer hurt, but hummed like an empty wire. Back home, I imagined my name wasn't mentioned. Maybe Mom was telling people I'd moved for work. Maybe Dad was too busy watching cable news and muttering about inflation to realize I hadn't been by in weeks. Natalie, for all her dentist-in-training glory, probably hadn't noticed at all. She was still deep in planning her engagement party. Meanwhile, I was planning my escape, quietly, one breaker at a time. 3 weeks in, after fixing a panel mislabeling and saving the crew from frying a $12,000 HVAC unit, Carl pulled me aside while I was eating a peanut butter sandwich behind a stack of drywall. "You want to make this permanent?" he asked, leaning against a crate of junction boxes. "Seriously?" He nodded. "I need someone dependable. Someone who shows up, works hard, doesn't whine. You're not perfect, but you get it done. That matters more than degrees or shiny resumes." He handed me a folded slip of paper. I opened it. My rate bumped by almost $5 an hour. It hit me harder than I expected. Like the world had quietly said, "Yeah, you're allowed here." I went home to Jared's that night, sat on the couch, still warm from his cat, and stared at the number on that slip like it was proof of life. The next morning, I put down a deposit on a studio apartment on the edge of town. Month to month. 1 room. No stove, no bed frame, just 4 walls, a ceiling fan, and a carpet that looked like it had survived a crime scene. But it was mine. I used a milk crate for a nightstand, ate spaghetti from a plastic bowl, and plugged in a single lamp that buzzed when you turned it too fast. That night, I sat on the floor with a sandwich, my tools, and a small framed certificate, the same one Mom took off the fridge. I hung it crooked on purpose. Didn't match the decor? Perfect. Meanwhile, in the Parker house, the silence was starting to shift. Mom was on her 3rd call with the utility company that week. She said something about confusing statements and must be a clerical error. Dad waved it off between bites of toast, mumbling, "They always do this around tax season." But the bills didn't lie. And Natalie? She was the first to say something. "Did you pay the gas bill?" she asked, hovering in the kitchen while Mom filed through a stack of unopened mail. "I'm handling it," Mom snapped, eyes tired, makeup half done. Natalie crossed her arms. "You always said Noah was the one who didn't have his life together." Mom didn't reply. She just slammed the drawer shut. Because for the first time in years, Noah wasn't the problem. He was gone. And the lights were starting to flicker. 2 months in, I finally felt like a human being. I had a mattress. A cheap one, yeah, with a spring that poked me every time I shifted left, but it was mine. No more couch backaches or waking up to Jared's cat licking my forehead. I bought it off a guy on Facebook who threw in a mini fridge. "Because you look tired, man." That fridge became my kitchen. My routine was solid. Wake up, drink the saddest instant coffee known to mankind, drive 40 minutes to Willow Ridge while dodging potholes large enough to claim small children, wire apartments until my hands cramped, eat microwaved spaghetti, sleep. Repeat. The best part? I was invisible to my family. No guilt texts. No passive-aggressive holiday invitations. No. "Can you stop by and check the panel?" Just peace. Until it broke. The first crack came via voicemail. Unfamiliar number, robotic transcription. "Hi, this is Carol from Monroe County Electric." I didn't even finish reading. Delete. Then a text from one of my old neighbors. "Yo, your mom okay? Saw her yelling at some utility guy in a van. Look serious." That one made my stomach twist. Out of curiosity, I searched the public utility notice board. My parents' address popped up in bold. Disconnection notice filed. 3 months unpaid. Foreclosure pending. I stared at the screen for a while. Not angry. Not smug. Just stunned. All those years I'd quietly covered bills, juggled expenses, fixed lights, kept them from even realizing how fragile things were, and now, without me? The whole place was short-circuiting. I could hear my mom's voice in my head. "Why is it so hard to keep this house running?" Simple. Because you kicked out the guy who ran it. The next week, the calls started. First Natalie. Straight to voicemail. Then Mom, 3 times in a row. Then a text. Things are a bit crazy here. Hope you're well. We'd love to talk. No apology. No. We miss you. Just diplomacy. Like I was a client they'd forgotten to invoice. I powered my phone off. The next morning, Carl called me into the trailer. Got something for you, he said, handing me a clipboard. It was a contract. 3-month extension. Pay raise. Company gas card. You've been solid, Parker, he said, wiping drywall dust off his vest. Quiet. Reliable. Zero drama. I wish I had 10 more like you. I stared at the paper. It felt like something I wasn't supposed to have, like success had accidentally mailed itself to the wrong guy. But Carl didn't look confused. He looked certain. You earned it, he said, like he was reading my mind. I nodded, biting my cheek. Thanks. Seriously. He clapped my shoulder once, hard enough to knock the air out of me. You've got a future in this, Noah. You're not just good with wires. You've got backbone. It hit me harder than I wanted it to. Meanwhile, across town, things were frying. Mom had tried baking banana bread for the power guy, again, but he just handed her the final notice and left. Dad was on his 3rd speakerphone call, yelling at the bank and blaming interest rates and corrupt systems. Natalie was pacing the hallway, voice rising. Maybe if you hadn't kicked out the only person who actually paid things. I'm not having this conversation again. Mom snapped. Well, we're having it now, Natalie fired back. Because I have an engagement party in 2 weeks, and I'm not lighting candles in the dark like we live in a cave. The fridge hummed, then died. The house went quiet. No one wanted to say it out loud. But the truth buzzed like a dead wire in the walls. They needed me. And I wasn't coming. It happened on a Saturday. I'd just finished rewiring an attic unit that felt hotter than the sun's armpit. Came home, tossed my boots off, flopped on the mattress, and let out a groan that sounded like it came from deep inside my soul. I had one sock on. Microwave burrito in hand. AC on low. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet. And that meant everything. Then came the knock. Not a friendly tap. Not a delivery guy. This was the kind of knock that carried stress. Like someone was standing outside with a clipboard and emotional baggage. I peeked through the tiny peephole and froze. My parents. Mom in full panic mode, wrinkled blouse, smeared mascara, hair puffed like she'd argued with the ceiling fan. Dad was behind her, trying to look composed and failing. His arms were crossed, but he shifted on his feet like he wasn't used to being ignored. I opened the door slowly. Noah, Mom breathed, like my name was air she hadn't had in weeks. I didn't speak. Didn't move. Just let the moment hang. Then I stepped back, silently inviting them in. They looked around my place, my tiny, hand-wired studio. One lamp. One folding chair. A mini fridge that wheezed when it ran. Certificate above the outlet. Everything clean, basic, and earned. Mom wrung her hands. We need your help. Of course you do. We fell behind. On a few things, she continued, voice cracking. Mortgage, power, the car got towed last night. Dad added. They're saying foreclosure. I leaned against the counter, arms folded. You screamed at me, I said quietly. Told me I was a disgrace. Mom flinched. I didn't mean it. We were just under so much pressure. I lived in your basement. Paid rent. Covered the internet bill. Fixed everything from the dishwasher to the HVAC unit. Quietly. You never noticed. You only noticed when I left. Her eyes welled up. You were always so capable. I think we took that for granted. I didn't reply. But I remembered. How I used to reset the circuit breaker when the oven tripped it. How I'd replace light bulbs before they even knew they'd burned out. How I paid the overdue gas bill once just so Natalie wouldn't freeze during her senior year finals, and never told anyone. Dad cleared his throat. Look, maybe we all said things we regret. But right now we're in trouble. You've got a job, stability. Surely you could help. Just until we catch up. There it was again. That old family logic. You don't matter until you're useful. We thought maybe you could call the utility company again, Mom added. Or float a month or two on the mortgage? I didn't answer right away. I walked to the fridge, pulled out 2 cold water bottles, set them gently on the counter. It's hot out. Take these. Mom's face fell. That's it. That's all I'm offering. Dad's jaw clenched. Is this how you treat your family? I looked at him. Calm. Collected. This is how I treat people who only remember I exist when their house starts falling apart. Mom whispered. We just thought. I know what you thought. And I'm not angry. I'm just done. They stood there for a moment, expecting something. A speech. A softening. A guilt-fueled hug. But I gave them nothing. They walked out, bottles in hand. As the door closed, I sat on the bed. My hands were still steady. No shaking. No shame. Just silence. Then my phone buzzed. Natalie. One text. They're freaking out. Good. I stared at it. Thought about replying. Didn't. Instead, I reached over, flicked the light switch, and smiled when the lamp turned on. The power was on where I lived. And I didn't owe anyone an explanation. A week passed. Then another. No knocks. No voicemails. No. We were just wondering. Texts. Just silence, not the cold, passive-aggressive silence I grew up with, but the kind that makes you breathe easier. I didn't realize how loud my life had been until I stepped away from it. Work was steady. Willow Ridge wrapped up. Carl handed me a sealed envelope with a prepaid Visa card and a note that just said, "For someone who actually gives a damn." I laughed. Taped the note to my fridge, right next to the wiring diagram I'd stopped needing months ago. Then came the call. A downtown property manager. High-end condos. Carl had dropped my name. He said, "You're the guy," the voice said. "We're looking for someone reliable who shows up, doesn't whine, and gets it done." I didn't even hesitate. I'm in. I spent that Saturday deep cleaning the apartment. My apartment. Mine. I reorganized my tools. Bought a new toolbox with my initials on it. It cost more than I should have spent, but I didn't care. I'd never owned anything that felt like it had weight. Something that told the world I built this. On Sunday, I actually cooked dinner, not microwaved, not handed to me through a drive-through window. Chicken, roasted potatoes, broccoli. It tasted better than it probably was. I think peace does that. I sat down in front of the TV with my plate and flipped on the local news. And then I saw it. My childhood home. On fire? No. Worse. On the foreclosure segment. There it was, yellow tape on the porch, a battered asset recovery van in the driveway. Our old mailbox, dented and leaning sideways. A reporter stood near the curb while neighbors awkwardly watched. Officials confirmed the Parker property has been seized after multiple defaulted payments and code violations. I muted it. Didn't need their commentary. I already knew the ending. But I kept staring at the screen. Couldn't look away. My eyes landed on the porch swing. I hadn't thought about that thing in years. I used to fix the chains when they squeaked. I was 12. Dad handed me a can of WD-40 and said, "You may not be college material, but at least you're good with your hands." Back then, I thought it was a compliment. Now, it sounded like a warning. They didn't see my work. They just saw what they could take. And when the work stopped, so did I, at least in their eyes. I remembered replacing light switches at 16 because Dad didn't trust random electricians. I remembered the quiet relief in Mom's voice when I told her the internet bill was already covered. I remembered standing in the freezing crawl space with a flashlight between my teeth, patching up a busted pipe while they slept. They never thanked me. But they always expected me. Until they didn't. Until I was gone, and the house fell apart. My phone buzzed. I already knew who it was. Natalie. "They're staying with Aunt Liz. Power's out." Dad's furious. Mom's sobbing. Still blaming the world. Then another message. They act like you abandoned them. Like they didn't tell you to leave. I didn't respond right away. I just looked around. My walls were plain. My lamp was from a garage sale. My rug didn't match the floor. But it was all mine. For the first time in my life, I wasn't fixing something I didn't break. I typed out a reply. Tell them I'm exactly where they left me, just further along. But I didn't send it. I turned off the TV, cleared my plate, and switched off the lights. Home wasn't a place anymore. It was peace. And they couldn't repossess that. I didn't expect to see them again. Not anytime soon. But life's funny like that. It was Natalie's engagement party. Backyard setup, paper lanterns swaying under a drooping clothesline, and enough folding chairs to make your knees scream. I came because she asked, twice. Then begged. You're my brother, she said. You earned your place at this table. I almost didn't go. But then I realized. I wasn't the one hiding anymore. Carl was already there when I arrived. He wore a short-sleeved button-up and looked vaguely uncomfortable holding a tiny plate of cucumber sandwiches. Natalie saw me and rushed over, linking her arm through mine like we were 10 again. I'm glad you came, she whispered. Even if they did too. She nodded toward the drink table. There they were. My parents. Mom had on too much makeup, like she was trying to paint over the months of stress. Dad stood behind her, stiff as drywall. His shirt didn't fit, sleeves too tight, collar unbuttoned. They clutched plastic cups and looked like extras in a scene they weren't invited to. When Mom saw me, she gave a small, broken smile. I nodded politely. That was all. Carl wandered over, eyes flicking between them and me. That them? Yep. He let out a long breath. Man. They look rough. I shrugged. Life without free labor's tough. He laughed, then paused. You good? I nodded. Better than I've ever been. We stood together while guests made small talk and complimented the ring. Carl handed me a beer, and someone turned on music from a Bluetooth speaker that kept cutting in and out. Then Natalie clinked her glass. I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight, especially my big brother. He's been through hell and back, and somehow still showed up for me. Carl raised his glass and added, to Noah, the guy who rebuilt everything, even when no one noticed. There were claps. Cheers. Someone shouted. Heck yeah. My parents didn't clap. They didn't move. But they were watching. After the toast, I headed toward the snacks. I wasn't even hungry, just wanted air. And that's when Mom appeared, like she'd been waiting for a gap in the crowd. You look healthy, she said. I bit into a baby carrot. Thanks. This is a nice party. Natalie's really grown up. She has. She hesitated. I didn't know we were losing everything when I screamed at you. I looked at her. I did. Her voice dropped. We thought you'd come back. I thought you'd mean it when you said get out. Her lip quivered. We've been at Liz's place. Your father's trying. But the job market. You're not here to catch up, I said. You're here to ask. I thought maybe you'd help. Just something small. Just until we. I don't fix what other people choose to break, I said. She looked wounded. Noah. Just then, Dad walked over. Arms crossed. Face tight. You could have helped. One call to the bank, Noah. That's all it would have taken. I turned to him. You told me I was a disgrace. That I wasn't part of this family. His jaw clenched. I was angry. No. You were honest. He didn't respond. Just stared, like he wanted to argue but knew he had nothing to stand on. I rebuilt my life while you let yours fall apart, I said. And now you're mad I didn't come running. Across the yard, Natalie was laughing with her fiancé. Carl was chatting with someone by the grill. A breeze tugged at the lanterns. The world kept turning. You're smug now, huh? Dad muttered. Think you're better than us? I took a long sip of my beer. No. Just better than I was. And with that I walked away. I didn't storm off. No dramatic exits. Just quiet, solid steps. I wasn't the kid in the basement anymore. I wasn't the unpaid handyman. I wasn't their fallback plan. I was Noah. And they couldn't fix that, even if they wanted to. It happened on a Tuesday. I was wrapping up a job in the city, third floor unit, tangled wires, terrible coffee in a paper cup. My back ached. But my spirit? Light. As I packed up my gear, I noticed a number I didn't recognize flashing across my screen. I let it go to voicemail. Then another. And another. 6 missed calls in under 10 minutes. By the time I was back in the truck, I had 12 more. The last one? My brother. Dad's furious. His voicemail said. Screaming. Pacing. The bank called. Said the mortgage transfer didn't go through. What did you do? I blinked. Then I remembered. Months ago, right before I left, I'd quietly signed over my share of the family home. I was on the deed. Grandma added me after Grandpa passed. Said, "You're the only one who actually fixes things around here." I never told anyone. It felt too kind to be real. But when I packed that bag, I made sure I wasn't the one holding the rope when it snapped. And now? It snapped. I scrolled through the voicemails. Mom sobbing. Dad yelling. My brother panicked. They hadn't asked who signed the bank notice. They assumed it was Dad. It wasn't. I pulled over. Sat in a Wendy's parking lot, staring at the flood of missed calls. Then I typed one message, calm, short, unbothered. Because I'm gone. I hit send. Put the phone down. 5 minutes later, 12 new calls. 10 minutes, 21 more. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The house was in default, and without my signature, there'd be no bailouts. No miracles. No Noah to crawl under the sink and patch the cracks they built with years of shouting, shoving, and shame. Natalie texted later. They're spiraling. Dad said you took everything. I replied. No. I took me. The rest broke on its own. I put the phone on silent, turned up the radio, and drove.